This is I Pierce the Toast. I'm Sean.
And I'm AJ. Let's make some toast.
Welcome back to I Pierce the Toast.
Hi, Toasticles. And I really don't know why Sean keeps calling this I Pierce the Toast. Why? What? Just IPTT. Come on.
Okay,
IPTT.
so here's the thing. The initials IPTT.
Yes.
Well, the TT is also a acronym for TikTok. And I don't know if you've been watching the news, but that shit's getting banned. And the last thing I want is for IPTT to get swept up in a TikTok ban. I don't need the government coming to us going, because I don't know if you heard some of the members of that committee that were talking about TikTok, but I very firmly believe that they could get confused enough to accidentally go, well, IPTT, TikTok, TT, it's the same thing. Ban those sons of bitches.
I mean, think about it, though. You tick them, they talk them, you don't stop the rock them, and that's okay. It's fine.
See, all that lingo you just used,
Yeah.
that's considered jive, and you're going to scare the commerce.
Well, I've seen Airplane, and
Energy
I
and
know that
Commerce
Joan Cleaver can speak jive, so it's okay.
Joan Cleaver can, sure, but she was hip. These are not hip people. Every person on that committee, it's like, I think they robbed a retirement home to stock this committee, is what I think happened.
We are so off track from where we should be. Let's get back to the actual show. Welcome back, Toasticles. We've been off a week. We missed you guys.
Why were we off for a week, AJ?
I know why I was off, because you were off. That's really why, because someone had to go to Comic-Con.
That's right. I attended Planet Comic-Con, me and my lovely wife, and we got to walk around and meet some people and talk to celebrities, and it was a lot of fun. None of that will be here because it wasn't in any sort of official capacity, but we met Cassandra Peterson, and it's Cassandra.
Elvira.
Yes, if you haven't picked up her book, her book is out. It's absolutely incredible. It's charming. It's funny. It's a great read. And in the book, she lets people know, by the way, because if you look at it, a lot of people pronounce her name Cassandra. Yeah. But she notes in there she uses the phonetics to say it's Cassandra, and I love that for her. I do want to tell this quick story, if you would.
Go ahead.
If you would permit me, AJ. While at Comic-Con, there's some things that come to light in Cassandra's book, and I don't want to ruin that for you guys. If you decide to read her book, she's fantastic. Again, as AJ said, this is Elvira.
Yeah, Elvira.
And you can tell there seems to be some worry she has about how she'll be perceived in this book, because she was very transparent, very honest, very open. And she, she's saying, people are saying that, we love you, Elvira. And she's like, well, wait until you read the book. And, somebody suggested, well, we still love you. The book is fantastic and we love you. She goes, we'll see you say that now, but next year I'm going to come out as a serial killer. So this was during her panel, and I was like, okay, good, I've got a question. So I head up to the mic and I asked her, next year when we find out that you're a serial killer, what will we find out is your serial killer nickname, and what will be your MO, your modus operandi? And she kind of struggled with the first part of the question. I think she just kind of came up with the Mistress of the Dark Killer, because that's kind of her,
that's her shtick.
Her moniker. And this is the part I really love. She said, and I think for my MO, I will smother men with my boobs. And then she let me know, and I think it's because I asked this question, she let me know I will be her first victim. So little pride moment there for me.
You have some things to look forward to.
I do. Look
year.
at that. We all have to make our mark on history, and I think that's going to be mine, being Elvira's first victim when she becomes a serial killer.
Yeah.
And it's just an honor to be nominated. It's good stuff.
Speaking of nominations, I don't want to detract from your Comic-Con. Yeah. From our last episode, we actually were right in everything that we said. Sean was correct in Best Picture, and I was correct in who was going to win Best Actor.
Oh, and did you see his speech?
I did. It was very, very
amazing.
beautiful. I loved it. He was so conscientious about making sure that he thanked everyone that he could, everybody. And he was just so heartfelt. And I don't know. It almost made me cry. I'm not gonna lie.
And with good reason. Such a genuine, wonderful human being. This is an incredible comeback story. I was so glad for his win. I was so happy for him. And I'm excited to see what's going to come next for him, for Brendan Fraser.
Fraser, right?
Fraser.
Is it Fraser?
Fraser?
I think it's Brendan Fraser.
Frazier.
See, I was wrong about how to fucking pronounce the French thing last time, so we need to look this up really quick, guys, because remember how that worked out.
I think I remember this because it was back in the 90s. He did an MTV interview, and he kept saying, it's Fraser, not Frazier. He said, if you say Fraser, I know where you live. Classic Brendan being Brendan.
Let's see what they say.
Brendan Fraser.
Fraser, yeah.
Fraser, yeah.
Yeah, okay, we're right.
So, did you see him interviewing on the red carpet with his two sons?
I didn't see that part, no.
Oh, it's great.
It was a champagne carpet this year, right?
Excuse me, that's right, champagne carpet. You're absolutely right. Yeah, they asked, if he says dad jokes, and not only does he do it, they told us what the dad jokes were. And I just loved that. Like, stuff like every time, they finish a sentence and they go, it's like this, right? And he'll go, left. Classic Fraser. Fraser.
I just really hope that, I've met a few celebrities in my life, but he's the one I really do want to meet. Jason David Frank was the other pinnacle, but this one I really do want to meet.
That would be awesome.
He just seems so genuine.
I hope that for you too, because I want you to meet him, and then I will tell people. I won't be able to tell people I met Brendan Fraser. I'll be able to tell people I know a guy that met Brendan Fraser. It'll be like, well, my best friend met Brendan Fraser. And that is enough for me. Like that, just that 2 stages removed, and I will be happy.
And I will be able to say that I know someone. I'm not the guy, but I know someone that got killed by Cassandra Peterson.
Nice.
All right. So we've kind of gone off topic. Did you want to talk about anything else that happened at Comic-Con?
We did have a really amazing time. I'd say the Elvira story was probably the pinnacle, but we got to meet Jonathan Frakes of Star Trek fame. He said fuck to us. Not like he wasn't like cussing at us, but he was trying to do something and he said fuck. And
okay.
I don't think I ever heard him say fuck in the next gen. So I was pretty happy with that. I was like, getting a fuck out of Jonathan Frakes. That's outstanding. I got to meet April Bowlby. Most people will probably remember her from things like Drop Dead Diva. Mm-hmm. She was in most recently the Doom Patrol with Brendan Fraser, actually. Yeah, so yeah, she's worked alongside him. Absolute sweetheart. She was wonderful to talk to. Really vibrant, really having a lot of fun with getting to meet her fans, and that's always great to see because sometimes it can seem like this could be an overwhelming experience, but when it feels like the celebrities are actually having a fun time interacting with people, I don't know, that always makes me feel good. It's like, good, I'm glad you're enjoying this, because I want them to enjoy that experience just as much as we are as the fans. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. But
that's good.
But that's not why we have gathered here today, AJ. We have gathered here to discuss film.
Yeah.
And what film are we discussing this week?
Before we do launch into the movie, I do want to say that we did lose a celebrity again. I know we just had Tom Sizemore, but Lance Reddick passed away, I believe it was last week. And you might know him from, he was Charon and John Wick, and John Wick 4 just came out. So
it's crazy. I was watching John Wick last night with my wife, and there's Lance Reddick on screen, and I was like, oh my God, we just lost him. That sucks. I didn't even realize he was in John Wick because... Yeah. Outside of Keanu, you don't hear a lot about who else is in it. Mostly because most everybody else gets shot in it. So it's mostly just, don't get attached to any characters in these films.
I mean, Lawrence Fishburne is in there, and he's great.
I've only made it halfway through the second one, so I don't know what's going to happen to Lawrence.
Oh, okay. We'll keep going. But, all right. But I just wanted to drop that in there, guys. Just make sure that everyone was aware that was something that did happen. But we are now going to roll into our official 9th episode.
It is our official 9th episode. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations to you. Technically, we have 10 episodes, but Brick is a 2-parter. So
Yeah. But yes, this is the official 9th film/celebrity we've discussed. And, of course, AJ got us started off strong in our first episode, talking about our flagship, the Birdcage.
Yeah.
And here we are 9 episodes later, still doing this. And I'm not really sure how we're still doing it, because every Sunday I dread having to do this, because it's like, oh God, I'm gonna talk for 4 hours and then have to cry. No, but it is exhausting. But I don't know. It's been fun, because I get to sit here with my best friend and just bullshit about movies for a couple of hours, which is kind of cool.
And you guys listen to us. I mean, thank you guys.
Yeah. Big thank you to everyone out there that's been enjoying the podcast, and I hope we're living up to not being another white boy with a podcast. Please tell me you've heard this.
I have not.
Have you not heard this?
No.
Another white boy with a podcast. Ooh, Jim Bro. Crypto.
I can't be that, though.
Well, no, we're definitely not these guys. This is no, we're not. It's a guy making fun of how there's so many Rogan-esque podcasts out there with just guys talking about going to the gym, their crypto. It's just, very. Yeah. They're all very cookie cutter, and it's just and the songs that are like, ooh, another white boy with a podcast.
Wait, but
He's great.
But we're not that. We have our Toasticles.
We do. We have our God damn it. Toasticles.
I do want to say, just before we do launch and everything, I know this is a pretty long intro, but I do want to say that we do have stuff in the works for you guys. We are creating like a submission form. There's some merch that we're thinking about being able to give to people that have submitted submissions, that we can maybe send you like a sticker or something like that, just kind of with our logo. Just know that there is stuff in the works. And if you guys are enjoying the show, please subscribe and interact with us. I mean, we would definitely appreciate that.
So AJ, what film are we discussing this week?
This week, we're going to talk about a controversial film, which I didn't necessarily think it was that controversial when it came out, but we're talking about JoJo Rabbit.
JoJo Rabbit. So we have spent a lot of time in the 90s and the early 2000s, and you are transporting us almost to present day.
Yeah,
this is only, 4 years old,
something like that, yeah, 2019.
2019, yeah.
Yeah. This is a movie with a very interesting premise. I remember the first time I heard somebody say, oh yeah, there's a movie called JoJo Rabbit. I was like, what the hell is that about? Oh, it's this boy in Nazi Germany whose imaginary friend is Hitler. What? And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, the title of the film gives you no context whatsoever. Like, I heard JoJo Rabbit, and I think I assumed it was going to be maybe some sort of like children's film or a cartoon, or like something like, a film about some sort of cartoon rabbit that goes on adventures. I think that was my first thought. And then someone describes the plot to you, and you're just thinking, how the fuck did you make those two connect?
But this movie was, like I said, it was released in 2019. The director is Taika Waititi. He is most known, I think, right now for the Marvel movies, like Thor, Love and Thunder, and Ragnarok. He was also Korg in Ragnarok, and I don't know if his character was in Love and Thunder, but he was like in Endgame and stuff like that.
I think it was, because I think I haven't actually seen Love and Thunder yet, but I'm pretty sure I've seen snippets that include his character from the original. And
he's got some amazing credits to his name. He's got Boy, not to be confused with Boyhood.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, which is that movie where the kid like grows up.
Right.
As we watch.
I mean, really cool thing, because it basically took, 15, 20 years to make, because they were literally filming the kid throughout his life and integrating it into a story, which is really cool, but not his.
Not that film.
Not his.
Then there was Hunt for the Wilder People. There was What We Do in the Shadows, which is an amazing movie. I mean, it's not amazing, but
it's an amazing movie.
Hilarious.
That was my dad took me to see that film. I remember this.
Did he really?
Yeah, he did. He took me to see it because he said it was a documentary, because he used the wrong word. He said documentary about vampires. And so, of course, in my brain, I thought, oh, this is a movie about like people who think they're vampires, or maybe dress in a certain aesthetic and embrace a certain, kind of nighttime lifestyle. And then we get in there, it's like, oh, my dad meant mockumentary.
Oh, God.
So I went in there with very strange expectations, and I came out loving everything about this film.
Now there's a TV show.
Right, there is. And the TV show is really good, too, because it's got that guy from the IT Crowd.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's such a fun little show. It's great.
And just like all of his ideas for movies are really great too, and he acts in a lot of his movies. So like I said, he was Korg, and he was in What We Do in the Shadows. He also, and I thought this was funny, I don't remember this at all, he was in Green Lantern, that really terrible Ryan Reynolds movie.
I don't think we're supposed to talk about that.
I think we do.
As a matter of fact, I don't think that film exists. Because if I remember correctly, Deadpool went back and killed Ryan Reynolds before he had a chance to greenlight and accept that role.
Oh yeah, that movie doesn't exist.
So that movie doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not there. Thank you, Deadpool.
All right, so the producers on this, there's actually two producers. It's Carther Neal. Neal did also Hunt for the Wilder People. He did Tickled. He did Pete's Dragon.
Why do I know that one? Pete's Dragon. That sounds super familiar.
Pete's Dragon? About the big-ass dragon?
Okay, that could be How to Train Your Dragon.
I don't think you know the new one, though.
That could be Dragon Slayer. It could be... What was that one with Christian Bale where they have to like hide from dragons all the time?
Oh shit!
Keep one eye on the sky. What the hell was that?
None of these are that movie.
That's what I'm saying though. You can't just say, "Oh, it's the one with the big ass dragon."
Well, Pete's Dragon, at least the original one, was a cartoon dragon with this kid named Elliot that used to follow him around.
Okay, gotcha.
Or I think the dragon's name was Elliot. Sorry, and Pete was the boy. Sorry,
the dragon's name was Elliot.
Son of a bitch. Yes, the dragon's name was Elliot.
That's like naming your dog James. What the hell is that shit?
This has nothing to do with this movie at all. Let's continue. Guys, look up Pete's Dragon if you want to know what this is about. This is not about this.
Oh, by the way, real quick. I don't care if you include this or not, but...
Ooh, another white boy with a podcast. Crypto.
You are 100% just so ecstatic about derailing everything we're doing.
I really am. I'm burning this motherfucker to the ground.
Anyway, moving on. Son of a bitch.
Producer.
The other producer in this is Chelsea Stanley, who is actually Taika Waititi's ex. She was also involved in What We Do in the Shadows.
Ex-girlfriend or ex-wife?
Ex-wife.
Okay.
But she was involved in What We Do in the Shadows. She is mostly known for a lot of her short films, which were like Meathead, Ebony Society, Night Shift. And something incredibly interesting to me is that she owns a production company that creates Maori language adaptations of Disney movies.
Really?
Yeah, so like they just go through and they just dub the Disney movies. The budget on this movie was $14 million, and it did very well. It made $90.3 million.
When I read that in your notes, there's this great video by Matt Damon where it's just him being interviewed, and he's talking about how a film can make money, or like how much you have to do to make money. And I think it was like you basically have to double what it took to make the film to even just break even in this day and age because of everything else that you have to do with a film. And so just to be able to make 6 times what you put into a film, phenomenal success.
Exactly. Considering it came from, at the time, I mean, Taika Waititi wasn't that he wasn't well known, but he wasn't a big name director at the time. And did very, very well. And considering the content of the movie too, I think that had something to do with it. As I mentioned before, the movie did very, very well financially, but it also did really well critically. It won Academy Award for Best Screenplay. It was nominated for Best Picture. Now, before we launch into the actual content of the movie, the reason I'm talking about why it did so well is because whenever we're talking about this movie, there are some things that are going to be brought up, and I don't want our listeners to think that we have certain views on fascism or Nazism, because in no way, shape, or form am I saying that Nazism is good at all. This movie does take a comedic element, and it kind of showcases Nazism in a comedic setting. That's not what the Holocaust was about. That's not what the World War II was about. Nazism is wrong, but this movie is funny.
And I know we're going to get into this because it's impossible to talk about this film without kind of exploring some of the controversy around that depiction of, this group of Nazis that were, are kind of portrayed almost forgivingly, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I didn't see it that way. I think there were some people that took it that way. That is not how I saw it. I much more took this as we are showing you that even within Nazism and the people that were a part of it, And I'd say the person that plays the Gestapo, the main Gestapo person is
Stephen Merchant.
Yeah,
prime. Yeah, we'll launch into the cast here in a minute.
And that he's a prime example of this idea that they wanted you to understand that it wasn't so black and white that it was just like, oh, those are the bad guys. No, they wanted you to realize that even the worst atrocities being committed, they were the kind of people that on a day-to-day, you might just see them as nothing more than just regular, everyday people.
Exactly.
And it's almost like the director wanted you to understand that don't think just because you're the person down the street who's in this particular uniform goes shopping and seems like an okay guy, that he's not capable of some incredibly awful things.
Now that we've gone through the disclaimer about the content of the movie, let's just jump into the cast. So first off, we have Roman Griffin Davis. This was actually his first movie.
This was his first film?
Oh yeah, first fucking movie.
Shit, kid, way to come out of the gate swinging.
Right? Thomasin McKenzie, who played Elsa in the movie, who I'll talk about next, she actually in an interview was talking about how she was so impressed with him and could not believe that this was his first movie.
Yeah, I would not have guessed. He's definitely young, and I get that, and I get that would necessarily suggest that he may not have been in a lot, but I assume he's had something under his belt, maybe some theater.
I couldn't see anything like
really?
that. Really? No, it was mostly that I think this is his first thing.
Wow. Yeah, that is... Holy shit.
Yeah. Now, he was in another movie after this, but he hasn't been in anything since. He was in a black comedy called Silent Night. So he plays Johann JoJo Betzler, the main character of the story. Then we have Thomasin McKenzie. She was in The Hobbit, in The Battle of the Five Armies as Astrid. She was in Lost Girls as Mary. And this is the first movie I actually remember recognizing her from, though, is The King. She played Queen Philippa. Thomasin McKenzie plays Elsa. Then we have Scarlett Johansson, who everyone would know from like the Marvel movies as Black Widow. She was in Sing as Ash. She was in the movie Chef, which is a really good movie. She played Molly, and she was in Don John, as Barbara, and she was the voice of the AI in Her.
Oh, that's right. I completely forgot she played the voice of the AI.
Yeah, she plays Rosie.
Yes,
and then
very storied career. And who does she play in this film?
She plays Rosie Betzler.
Who and who is
she's
that?
The mom.
Oh, she's the mom. Okay, she's JoJo's mom. Okay, gotcha.
And then we have Taika Waititi, because he's always in his movies, and he plays Adolf Hitler, who in this movie, like I said, is JoJo's imaginary friend. And interesting, he wore a fat suit for this too.
I saw your note on this. Why did he have to wear a fat suit?
Because he's actually really, really, really skinny.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, like Taika Waititi is a really thin man, so he wore a fat suit to try to play Hitler. And what's funny about this, he did no preparation work for Hitler on this.
Really?
So, yeah, he was just like, no, I don't care. It's Hitler. He doesn't care.
He's just gonna. He's like, screw that guy. I'm gonna portray him how the fuck I want.
Well, his exact words were like, he made this movie as a fuck you to Hitler. So
I appreciate that. I think any chance any of us can give a fuck you to Hitler or anything Hitler ideological, I'm on board. Yeah, you have my full support.
Hitler or Hitler adjacent.
Hitler or Hitler adjacent. Yes, any Hitler adjacent fuck yous are okay in my book.
Next up, we have Sam Rockwell. I love Sam Rockwell.
Who doesn't fucking love Sam Rockwell?
And I loved him in this movie. He plays Captain Klinzendorf, or we just call him Captain K. And he was in The Green Mile. He was Wild Bill Wharton. He played in a movie called Moon, which I really want to talk about later, as Sam Bell. He was in Iron Man 2 as Justin Hammer. And he was in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Who is he in that?
He was just a thug. He was in it. Yeah, I just thought that was really cool. I was like, he was in this movie?
Was he the one that Casey Jones beats up?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch. I was just like, wait, what?
Now, you're leaving one off. And now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty. Like, if we were to literally go through Sam Rockwell's entire IMDb, we'd be here all day.
Yeah.
But you did leave off Galaxy Quest, and I feel like we need to.
No, I purposely left that.
Why would you purposely leave that off? I love that movie.
Galaxy Quest is not a good movie.
It's a terrible movie, and I love it. Everything about it is great, especially the part where Sam Rockwell he plays a guy that was like in what we would think of in actual Star Trek terms, because it was very much a Star Trek kind of spoof.
He was like a red shirt.
He was a red shirt.
Yeah.
He knew that he was just supposed to be a guy that goes and dies, and then he's like just still hanging around because it's the only like acting credit that ever did anything for him. And then somehow, like, even within the context of the Alien story, where they're actually on, fighting aliens, he just kind of accepts his fate as a quote unquote red shirt. He's about to go there and die. And who was it who saves him?
I don't know.
Tony Shalhoub, because Tony Shalhoub is
Fucking
our savior.
monk?
Yeah. Fucking monk. What? That's right. He threw on his old monk outfit. He refused to touch anything and somehow still saved the day. It's amazing.
Oh yeah. What was the phrase in that movie they kept fucking saying? Never give up, never surrender.
Never surrender.
There we go.
Hell
Okay.
yeah. Moving on.
Moving on from Galaxy Quest. We have Rebel Wilson, who is mostly known from Pitch Perfect, but she was in Bridesmaids, and she had a bit role in Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider, like the
one with Nicolas
Cage movie?
Yeah.
What?
She was the person that was in the alley when they were giving an interview, and she was like, and his head was all like,
oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
That was Rebel Wilson.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Oh man.
Yeah.
That's one of those moments, like I had one of those moments yesterday. My wife had a friend visiting, and that friend started talking about, do you remember Count of Monte Cristo?
Yeah.
Do you remember the young boy Albert?
Are we talking original Count of Monte Cristo? Or the
No, not like the black and white version from
Yeah.
like the 50s. I'm talking about the more recent one with Caviezel.
No, I don't remember that.
Oh, you don't remember that at all?
No.
Yeah, if you ever go back and watch it, take a look at who Albert is, because it just blew my mind. It's Henry fucking Cavill.
Really?
I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, he's so young in that role. He's like 18. He might even be younger, but I'm guessing.
So he was like
based off-
skin and bones.
Oh, he was a tiny little thing.
Yeah.
And comparatively, like, they're making him smaller compared to the other actors, which is just hilarious because it's Henry Cavill. The man's a fucking beast.
Yeah.
Who else we got?
We got Alfie Allen, who is most known, at least in the newer generation, as Theon Greyjoy from Game of Thrones.
See, when you sent me the notes, I recognize a lot of these names. Obviously, the kids are kind of brand new, so I'm not expecting to remember them from too much. But I guess I just don't remember who Alfie Allen really is.
He was in John Wick.
Who is he in John Wick?
He was the younger guy, the one that actually like kills his dog.
Oh, that little fucker.
Yeah,
the one that plays like the Russian.
Yeah.
That's Alfie Allen?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'm following now.
Yeah. And I completely forgot to say, Rebel Wilson's character was Fraulein Rom, and Alfie Allen's character is Freddie Finkel. A fun fact, too, a lot of the listeners will actually know this, but Alfie Allen is Lily Allen's brother.
Oh, okay. I don't know who that is. What do you want from me? What the fuck do you want from me? I spend all my time watching movies. You think I got time for music?
I bet you know who the next guy is, Stephen Merchant.
Of course I know who fucking Stephen Merchant is.
Yeah, of course you do.
Of course I do.
Yes, Stephen Merchant.
He's an old, awkward white man.
Yeah. He was in Hot Fuzz. He was in Logan. He was in Fighting with My Family. Co-writer and director of the original Office, the British version.
He's also in Big Bang Theory. He plays the temporary love interest of Amy while her and Sheldon. Yeah, I remember he kind of comes in, but he's more interested in Sheldon because he's so fascinated by physics. Yeah. And so it makes it really awkward for them.
But he plays Herman Dietz, who's just a Gestapo agent, like you mentioned earlier. And then we have Archie Yates, who plays my favorite character in the whole movie, Yorkie. And we'll get into who Yorkie is, but he's basically JoJo's best friend. And the only other movie I could really find that he was in was Home Sweet Home Alone, which is like the newest Home Alone, I guess.
There's a new Home Alone.
Yeah.
Called Home Sweet Home Alone.
Yes.
That's new enough that Archie Yates played in it.
Yes.
I know what I'm doing with the rest of my weekend.
I think it came out in 2020. Sorry, 2021, not 2020. My apologies.
Okay, so we have a new installment in the Home Alone saga.
Yeah.
That's as recent as 2 years ago.
It was universally panned, so that's why you didn't hear about it.
Yeah,
100%.
Color me fucking shocked.
So before we get into the plot, there are a few things that's actually kind of interesting about the casting of this one. It seems that Taika Waititi either casts or like finds people that he loves to work with, because I mean, think about how many people were in the Marvel franchise. Sam Rockwell, Stephen Merchant to a certain extent when he was in Logan, Scarlett Johansson.
Whoa. Read the fuck wind. Did you just say Stephen Merchant was in Logan?
Yeah. I said that whenever I was talking about him.
Yeah, but I was thinking about Stephen Merchant in Big Bang Theory, so I didn't listen to a goddamn word you had to say. What the fuck do you mean he was in Logan? Who the fuck was he in Logan? He was who?
Caliban, the one with the bald head.
I don't remember this at all.
He was like the guy that was taking care of Professor X with Logan.
That was Stephen Merchant?
Yes.
The big awkward guy?
Yes.
Holy fuck, I have to go rewatch that movie. That's amazing.
But yeah, it seems like he like finds people that he's either worked with or like are in the same kind of universes. And he knew Thomasin McKenzie since she was really, really young. And he was like way back when she was really, really, really little. So I'm thinking he was just friends with the family.
Well, based off another note that you have in here about his directing style, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense that he'd only want to work with people that he's very familiar and very comfortable with.
And he has a very interesting directing style to begin with, like you had just said. He doesn't like to give direction.
I thought that was...
He just kind of like lets them do things.
Based off how well his films come out, that is so hard for me to believe. It is so hard for me to accept that he's not giving direction in performance form to his performers.
Yeah.
That's... I mean, first off, right out of the gate, ballsy as hell.
Oh, yeah.
That is incredibly ballsy. But... also, just the fact that he's able to get such an amazing performance out of these people by just letting them be organic. That is incredible.
Well, it kind of seems like in some of the interviews I was watching, he, not to be too tongue-in-cheek here, it kind of seems like he's almost a Nazi on set.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I was going to ask, based off that directing style, this idea of I'm not going to give you a lot of performance direction, I wonder how he is on set. So you're telling me that even despite that he's not giving a lot of performance direction, in any other capacity as a director, he is kind of a hard ass.
I don't know if that's exactly how it is, but I kind of got the feeling from listening to the other actors talk about this that he could be kind of an ass on set. But his movies turn out really well. People do love him. He's a genuinely nice guy. I think maybe he just kind of has a different mindset when he's directing.
One, I think we've all worked for people like that, not even necessarily in film. I think we've all worked for leaders who, despite the fact that they may have some eccentricities or might be sometimes overbearing, we understand that there is a goal and a reason behind their intensity.
Yeah.
And we can tend to accept that. It's when a leader or a boss or a manager has that intensity with no real purpose behind it, and it's not really, the stakes are super low and who gives a crap, you know? I mean, like if you've got a manager at a grocery store that's just busting your balls all the time, I mean, it's like, screw you, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Go home.
Go
home to your cats.
Go have a Coke and a smile, you son of a bitch.
Get a smile. All right, so now that we've kind of talked about the cast, we're going to go into the movie itself. As I had said before, this movie is not in any way, shape, or form supposed to be something that glorifies Nazism. But this
Wait a minute, there's Nazis in this movie?
Yeah, I know, right? But it does take place in Nazi Germany, and so some of the things that, if you do go watch the movie, you'll see that there is a lot of comedic elements to this whole thing, and they play it up as almost as if the Germans are bumbling idiots sometimes, I swear.
Well, we should say that it takes place at the very end.
Yes, the
of
very,
Nazi
very
Germany.
end.
The very end.
Yeah, the
We're
very
literally, within the scope of the film, we're privy to the transition of, or the end of the Nazi era. You know, obviously it's specifically in this town that we're in, which do we ever talk about the name of the town?
I don't think, hold on,
because there's a lot of famous markers. Like I think I didn't personally go and try to look it up, but there were enough markers about, you know, like the walking by the river and the town square that it feels like you could figure it out.
I'm assuming that was the Rhine, the river. I don't really know.
And I guess that would go through several towns, wouldn't it? So I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember them mentioning the town.
I don't remember the town, like them actually mentioning the town either, but it might be out there. So forgive me, guys. I didn't come across that fact. So if you do come up with it, please just like reach out to us on Instagram. Just let's say, hey, this was actually the name of the title, and we'll go back and put it in our show notes.
And you can be mean about it too. Like, don't think you have to be nice. You can be like, listen, fuckers.
You can tell us we're dumbasses. It's okay. I call you Toasticles, so I'm just saying. Fuck. All right. So this movie starts off with some kids singing a German song over the Fox Searchlight intro, which everyone knows the Fox Searchlight. It's like dun 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 dun. But it's just some German kids singing over that, and it's JoJo giving himself like a pep talk before he's gonna go to this training weekend for the Deutsches Jungvolk, which is like the Hitler Youth. So if you ever hear that Deutsches Jungvolk, it's literally just Hitler Youth. So I'm probably just gonna call them the Hitler Youth.
And I don't want to disparage the Boy Scouts, but do you get a very Boy Scout vibe from this?
Yeah, if the Boy Scouts were fucking twisted, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, don't get me wrong. If the Boy Scouts were a lot worse than, what we found out about them in some recent years. But yeah, I got a very, it kind of goes along with what we were talking about earlier. We're not trying to, glorify Nazism, but at the same time, we're trying to take this slice of Nazism so you can understand how it can impact people, how it can change people. And one of the things we're seeing is this: if you take away the Nazi uniforms and the Nazi paraphernalia and the fact that the kid's, imaginary friend is Adolf fucking Hitler, this could just be Boy Scout camp.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. But we'll go over the differences, the distinct differences between the Hitler Youth and Boy Scouts. So JoJo's giving himself this pep talk in the mirror, and he's like, JoJo Betzler, 10 years old, and he's just kind of talking himself up. But then you see a figure kind of pop up behind him, walking back and forth, and he's also pumping JoJo up, but he's also kind of giving him backwards compliments as well.
Okay, so, how so?
As he leans in, he's talking. He's like, you're kind of short and you don't know how to tie your shoes, but that's okay. What a dick! Yeah, he's kind of being a dick about it. And then as he leans in, you realize that his imaginary friend is Adolf Hitler. And as he's trying to pump JoJo up, he's like, all right, no, you're gonna get ready for your day. Now heil me, man. It's like, wait, what?
I love that because it's like he's asking for a high five. Heil me, man.
He's like, wait, what? And he's like, Heil Hitler. And that's not enough where he's like,
what? You can heil me better than that.
And then he's like, Heil Hitler. And then they keep going back and forth. In the very end, they're like screaming Heil Hitler at each other. And as JoJo's screaming Heil Hitler, Adolf is talking. He's like, you're going to have a good day. You're going to have a great day. You're going to have the best day. And then JoJo runs out of the house, just screaming Heil Hitler into the streets. And the German version of Hold My Hand is playing, which is like a theme throughout this, is they keep playing well-known songs, but the German versions of them.
Oh, God, I completely forgot about that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Running out the door, JoJo meets his friend Yorkie, and Yorkie is just kind of talking to JoJo. He's like, oh, JoJo, this is going to be great. And then they run off into the woods on their way to their orientation for this. And the orientation for their camp is held by Captain K, who I mentioned previously, Freddie Finkel, and Fraulein Röhm. Captain K is talking to these kids, and you can tell he doesn't want to be there. He's just basically saying that he's disappointed that he has to be there. He's like,
So, a little about me. Who am I, and why am I here talking to a bunch of little titty grabbers instead of leading my men into battle towards glorious death? Great question.
Titty grabbers.
And then he explains that he lost his eye in a totally preventable attack. And he was told that the German soldier needs two eyes to be useful. But he's like, well, can two-eyed people do this? And then he just starts shooting things with his gun. But he's like extremely accurate. And
he doesn't have one eye he has to close.
Oh, yeah. And later on in the film, you find out that he actually is a decorated soldier on one of the things I'll talk about later. But you see his he's got 2 iron crosses. He's got a bronze.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, he's like a bronze combat clasp, a silver tank destruction badge, a bunch of stuff. He has a gold wound badge, which I guess means that he's been wounded 5 times in combat. So he's extremely decorated. Now he's got to take care of all these kids at basically a Boy Scout retreat. And then Kay pulls out the knife and he's like, all of you guys have your knife. This is a very special knife. Just make sure that you always keep it with them, never lose it. But then he's like, no stabbing. And then Freddie in the background's like, no stabbing! and then he turns to the camera, he's like, yeah, no stabbing.
No stabbing.
No stabbing. I thought that was just hilarious. He tells all the youth that the boys are going to be learning things similar to a soldier. They'll be learning how to throw grenades, basically set up camp, stuff like that. And then
stabbing.
There'll be some stabbing. No stabbing.
No stabbing.
And then he tells the women that they're going to be learning how to be basically nursemaids and learning how to get pregnant.
I understand that we have sex education.
Yeah.
How do you teach kids to go, listen, this is how you're gonna get pregnant. Like, because it didn't sound like, this is how the process works, but like, this is how you're going to set about getting it done.
Oh, I have no idea.
That just seemed like I sat there wondering that to myself for a good 15 minutes when I first watched this film.
I mean, you saw Fräulein Rom, right? When she was talking to him, she's like, I've had 18 babies for Germany. Such a good year to be a girl. It's like, what? How did you have 18 babies? This war has only been going on for like 4 years right now.
Rebel Wilson is an overachiever.
Yes,
and she's an ambitious young German Fraulein.
Right after this speech, you cue the montage of basically all of these boys going and doing a lot of Boy Scoutish type of things. They're learning how to like build fires, they're fighting. And then like it quickly turns because you start seeing like the gas masks that the kids are wearing. The girls are like doing these exercises. One of the boys throws their knife into a tree. I think it's Yorkie that does it. And like it bounces off the tree and stabs a little kid in the leg.
Shit.
And then there's like a scene where the kids are all fighting because I guess they're learning like hand-to-hand combat. But one of the older boys throws the rock down on like to the other kids, and another kid picks it up, and Finkel's like, now you got to finish him. And then you hear this little kid scream, and the rock just gets smashed down. I'm like, I'm pretty sure a little kid gets killed at the beginning of this movie.
Holy shit. I must have blocked that part out.
Then they're taught all these ridiculous things about the Jewish people, such as like having fangs, wings, scales.
Oh, I do remember this because you could tell I remember watching this going, okay, so this is where we're making that transition that you're talking about, where we're going from, okay, here's a Boy Scout type thing, and then there's a couple of military-esque things thrown in. It's like, okay, this is getting a little bit more than we think children should be in. And then there's the transition into, yes, these are the kinds of things you can see at places like the Holocaust Museum of how Jewish people in this time were being portrayed to other them so that they could justify those atrocities.
Exactly. And then right after this scene of them explaining the Jewish people are essentially demons, they go have a book burning party.
This is where I think Waititi really shows some brilliance in the filmmaking is, and I don't know if this was intentional, but this is kind of how I saw it play out. He, as we mentioned earlier, this is at the end of the Nazi occupation. All right, this is we're coming to a close of World War II, and we're going to show that near the end of the film. I feel like he wanted to catch us up.
Yeah.
So that's why we did, that awful visuals of how they, quote unquote, identified Jewish people, and the book burnings, and the gas masks and all that. What it was a representation of, hey, this is the kinds of things that are happening in this country up until this point. This is where we've gotten to, and now we're going to take off with this small bit of the story from here. It was like his way of recapping the Nazi occupation and World War II up to that point, so that we as the audience could have that background and understand what we were dealing with moving into the rest of this plot.
Well, he also continuously does this throughout the movie, where he will kind of suspend what is going on in Nazi Germany at the time, and you're like, oh, this is just a fun, happy movie. He immediately brings like it back around completely and says, no, this is Nazi Germany, by showing like a depiction of something terrible that's going on. And he continuously does this throughout the movie. So you're never really thinking, oh, this is just a funny movie. No, it's a funny movie within this context.
And so, it's kind of like when you did Fried Green Tomatoes.
Yeah.
There are those little context clues where we have to almost keep getting these reminders like, hey, don't forget where we are.
Yeah.
Don't lose track of the meaning here, because, as a filmmaker, he wants to make sure, like, look, I don't want you to fall down a rabbit hole. I don't want you to fall down the rabbit hole of thinking that this is going to be a happy little tale.
Exactly.
Because it won't be.
So later on that night, Yorkie and JoJo are both dressed in their pajamas, and they're talking about what they would do if they ever saw a Jewish person. And JoJo says he would kill it like that, but he keeps trying to snap, but he can't snap, so he like slaps his hands together, and he's like, that. When he's asked how he would know, he says a bunch of like really weird things, but then the one thing that stands out to me, he's like, yeah, besides, they smell like Brussels sprouts. And Yorkie's like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the Brussels sprouts bit.
Like Yorkie knows that this
just
is
going
bullshit.
along with this bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, no, wait. Did you tell me that the director is Jewish?
Yeah.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's part Jewish.
I did. Wow. Okay. I'm sorry. I just based off of that description, I started thinking like, wait a minute. Did he tell me this, or did I imagine this in my head that the director actually is
He's part Jewish.
heritage.
He's
as well.
Maori and he's Jewish. The next scene that's brought up is that there's a scene in the forest where there's a bunch of these older, I guess they would be Eagle Scouts in this case. They were just older Hitler youth, and they're talking about how the German soldier must be ready to kill, and they have a rabbit. Right. And so they start talking to JoJo, and they're basically egging JoJo on to kill this rabbit. They start talking about JoJo's father and about how he's just gone because he's not in the picture, and they think he's a deserter. And this is where JoJo gets his JoJo Rabbit name, because JoJo refuses to kill the rabbit and he tries to let it go, but then one of the older boys snaps the rabbit's neck, and then they start calling him JoJo Rabbit because he's scared.
And these are the boys that are like about to leave for the war, right? Like that's kind of the pipeline here. Is the Hitler Youth is. And that's one of the kind of the juxtapositions between the Boy Scouts versus quote unquote Hitler Youth. We're obviously putting it in the Boy Scout lens because we're trying to make it approachable to American audiences. Yeah. But in reality, this was a pipeline. It was you join the Hitler Youth with very much the intention of going on to serve the war effort. Yeah.
And each of these boys, even as young as they are, that's all that they want to do. They want to go to war. They want to fight for Germany. You start seeing the fanaticism a little bit throughout you start seeing it full force with JoJo, but you start seeing it more and more and more, and you're like, oh my God, this is awful. JoJo runs off into the forest, and he's talking to Hitler, and Hitler again is giving him a pep talk. And it's the most ridiculous pep talk ever, because he explains that rabbits are brave creatures.
Brave creatures.
Shut the fuck up. He explains that rabbits are brave creatures who face like a dangerous world of hunting carrots. And then he offers JoJo a cigarette, and JoJo's like, no, I'm good.
Doesn't he do that a couple of times throughout the film? Like, keep trying to offer him a smoke?
Yeah, you'll see.
It's great.
Then he tells JoJo to be a rabbit, and then JoJo just like takes this to heart, runs off into the forest, and he interrupts a grenade training session that Captain K is giving, where he takes the grenade and he runs and he throws it, and he's like screaming, he's super excited. Then the grenade bounces off a tree, explodes right in front of him, and then there's this like montage of him being rushed to the hospital, and people are like gasping at how messed up he looks because he's just covered in blood. And then Captain K walks in the operating room at some point, and he's like, oh, his mom's gonna kill me. So then it flashes, and you see JoJo standing in front of a mirror, and his face is pretty disfigured, but it's not like horrible.
It's like some scars.
Yeah, some scars, and that's it. He's like, oh my God, I'm ugly. But the funniest thing about all this was that while this happens, after the grenade bounces off the tree and explodes right in front of him, the next thing you see is it flash to Captain K, and he's like, yeah, don't do that. Before all of this, and he just doesn't care.
Yeah. Like that scene in Waiting. See what he just did? Don't do that.
That part was just really, really funny to me. This effectively forces him out of any of the training that he can do, and his mom takes him back to the office that now Captain K is running because he has been demoted for negligence.
Oh, I forgot about that part. So that's why he ends up in the office, because he goes from basically being the Boy Scout, quote unquote,
Boy Scout leader,
to now an even worse position of just being a desk jockey.
Yeah, the first thing that Rosie does is just knees Captain K in the nuts and tells him to take care of her kid while she's out doing what she's doing.
Wait, is this ScarJo?
Yeah, this is ScarJo.
She knees him in the nuts.
Yeah, she knees him in the nuts.
I'm so glad I didn't rewatch this, because I had intended to this week. I'm glad I didn't, because I'm really enjoying getting to hear this through you, and all these little pieces that I've forgotten about, like ScarJo just being an absolute badass in this movie.
So she knees him in the nuts, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to take care of him. Well, first they start trying to name off some things that he could do. One of the things, the clones, I guess, need to be walked, because they just have a bunch of Aryan clones just in a corner. There's like 10 of them, which is a fun fact. They're actually played by the JoJo's actor's brother.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I thought that was funny. But they end up just taking him to go basically put up propaganda and hand out conscriptions.
Wait, conscriptions like telling people they have to go to war?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Now, this is where we would get some insight into the home life, because as we've just talked about, his dad is nowhere to be found. We don't really know what's going on with him. People say he's fighting off in the war. We don't really know.
Some of the kids have suggested that he was a traitor or a deserter or some sort. Okay.
And now Rosie is raising him alone, and she works to cheer him up every single day by kind of doing what his imaginary friend does. She gives him some back backwards compliments where she'll basically say, yeah, you're an ugly kid and stuff like that, but then cheers him up.
So the imaginary friend is almost a reflection of the mother, but in a form that the kid feels like he can actually look to as a role model, because he doesn't feel like his mother can be a role model, because she, in this time she's a woman. What does she know? So it's almost like male-ifying, if that's a word. Male-ifying, or creating a male version of his mother that's also, a famous person, in this case, a kind of a celebrity of the time for the kid, Adolf Hitler, that he can actually look to and take the same sort of advice and same relationship with, but in a slightly different form.
To me, and this kind of comes out later, it almost feels as if he needs a father figure in his life. And instead of like embracing a representation of his actual dad, even the compliments that the backwards compliments that his mom is giving him, it sounds like that's how his dad talked. Because there's a scene later that we'll go over where...
And I was actually thinking of that, where she... takes on both roles in a fun and interesting way,
Yeah, and she kind of talks like him, and it seems as if that's the way his dad talked. So she's trying to be both.
Gotcha.
Now, as JoJo's out handing out conscriptions, he does come across Rosie just in the public corner one day, and they come across a public execution post, and there's people that are hanging from it. And she tells JoJo not to look away. He asks what they did, and she states what they could.
And I think it's important that we note here, what is it that JoJo can actually really see at his eye level?
Really, it's just their shoes.
Shoes. Yeah.
Well, whenever he looks up, he can actually see the people hanging at this point. They get a full view of all the people.
Oh, they do in the beginning.
Yeah, in this one, at first he sees the shoes, but then he looks up and he can see them because we actually get a view of this.
And just from context, I think it's important. Obviously that's going to come into later, and I'm excited for you to get to that part, because it's a horrifying image, but important nonetheless. But just for the context, in case anybody's unaware, shoes are very important when it comes to the Holocaust. The shoes became a representation of the amount of individuals that were lost to this, horrific time in history. And we can see not only places in Germany where they've kept these giant piles of shoes to represent all of those lost lives, but even in the traveling expositions and the Holocaust Museum here in Washington, D.C., there are enough of the shoes to go around to give people a harrowing image of what that represented.
Well, there was also, in Schindler's List, there was a focus on the shoes in that movie as well.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah. And then, was it in Schindler's List where they showed the two red shoes?
That was a red jacket, I believe.
Well, there is a pair of red shoes. Was
there red shoes as well?
There was, and it was actually at the traveling Holocaust Museum that
was
we
it
got
the
to
little
see
girl?
Here. And I don't remember if it was. I think they are little girl shoes, but they're because most of the shoes were very kind of dusty and gray, and then there's like this one pair of red shoes sitting amongst all of them, and it's because it's this bright spot of color in all of this it's like. I don't even know how to interpret it. I don't know how I want to interpret it. I don't know how I'm supposed to interpret it, but I know it made me terrified and feel horrid looking upon this as a scene and seeing those red shoes in the midst of that pile.
Yeah, and it's almost like what Taika Waititi did in this scene. It's supposed to be funny. JoJo just blew himself up. It's funny. It's laughable. But then you come and he reels you back in. This is execution post. This is
one of those moments.
This is one of those moments where he just reels you back in and he says, this is what's going on. And whenever, like I said, whenever he asks what they did, she just says what they could. And you get the implication that she doesn't embrace the Nazi ideal like JoJo does. Because JoJo seems to be a fanatic.
This is like our first indication of that, right?
Yeah, this is the first one.
Clear reluctance or... Objection, sure, to Nazi ideals.
Yeah. So one day while JoJo's at home, his mom is out, he hears some thumping upstairs coming from his deceased sister's room. Whenever he goes to investigate, he finds Elsa, who is hidden in the space between the wall. He realizes very quickly that she's a Jewish girl, and he tries to enforce his authority on her because he's a Nazi. He is a fanatic Nazi. His walls are decorated in just Nazi memorabilia. He's got a picture of Adolf Hitler. His imaginary friend is Hitler. So he tries to impose his will on her, and he thinks that he's going to be able to win just because he's of Aryan blood. He's going to overpower her, but she quickly overpowers him.
Well, that's the propaganda that's been put in this kid's head his whole life, is that he is superior. So there should never be a situation where he faces off with someone who is not of, that pure Aryan culture, and lose.
And so she takes his knife from him, and she threatens him not to tell anyone. She says, don't even tell your mom that you know, because if you tell people that your mom helped me, your mom's going to die.
Wait, was this the special knife? The one that Captain K told him he wasn't supposed to lose?
Yeah, he's not supposed to lose this one because it's the Hitler Youth knife.
Oh, fuck.
And so she says, if you tell anyone, your mom's going to die for helping me, but if you tell your mom that you know, I'm going to cut your Nazi head off.
God damn.
So that he runs away, and then Adolf comes to him and tells him how scary that is.
So even in his own head, Adolf, who is the antithesis of Aryan maleness, is going, oh my God, that's so scary.
Well, he was like, that was intense. And then he's like, then he mentions that she's fast like a little Jesse Owens. But then, because I don't know if anyone gets the historical context behind that, but Jesse Owens won the Olympics against Germany, and like he beat them that year.
Oh God, that's great.
So he holds that, and so he says like a little Jesse Owens, and then JoJo's kind of talking to him, kind of saying like how scary that was, and then Hitler again says, yeah, like a little Jesse Owens, like he repeats it. It's just funny. So JoJo does go back to confront her again. He's armed with another knife, but then she quickly takes that again, and so he runs back, and then Adolf and him have to convene about what they're going to do, and then he offers JoJo another cigarette, and he's like, stop offering me cigarettes, I'm goddamn 10. So after he gets offered a cigarette, Adolf is talking to him about how there was a plot against him, and he's like, when people use mind powers on me, I use my mind powers back on them, because one of the things that's been talked about is that Jewish people have special mind powers.
Because of course.
Yeah, because of course. He's mentioning a Captain von Stauffenberg, and if you don't know who this is, again, we get another history nod, where there was a Project Valkyrie.
Oh, this is Tom Cruise.
Yeah, this is Tom Cruise. I mean, if you want to watch the god-awful movie.
It's just Tom Cruise making no effort whatsoever to even try to sound German. Yeah, it's great.
But then he's talking about how he outwitted von Stauffenberg, or Altstaffe, as he says. Basically, he's just saying he flipped the tables on them by making them think he was dead. Well, JoJo uses that, and he's like, all right, well, I have my knowledge of the situation. I'm going to use this to my advantage. So when Rosie gets home, he hints to Rosie that he heard some things moving upstairs. In his words, he heard her. And then she looks at him, and he's like, no, I heard a ghost. Inga, who is his sister. So he knows that Rosie's going to have to address this situation. So before she goes to sleep that night, she's like looking around in the house. She's like, where's all the goddamn knives? Because the knives keep getting taken. Well, Rosie goes to talk to Elsa later on that night. She's like, you have to be careful because JoJo will tell. He's a fanatic. Like, she knows that her son has embraced Nazism to a T. And she's like, if I have to choose between you or my son, but then she stops short of telling her that she's going to choose her son. She's like, I just don't know what I would do with you. So they have a heartfelt conversation about how she still thinks that JoJo's in there, even though he has embraced these ideals, that he is still the little boy she remembers. And Elsa kind of tells her that she's going to give up hope because she's in the situation that she's in. She's locked in this small little area within 2 walls, and she has to hide. But then Rosie tells her, you shouldn't give up hope. Now we move forward to a pool scene where it looks like there's just a bunch of people that have suffered war wounds, and JoJo's a part of this.
Because of his grenade thing?
Because of his maiming. As like these people are floating in the pool, you see Adolf just swimming with them, just like it's hilarious.
Please tell me he's in full uniform when he's doing this.
Yeah. Well, it's not uniform, but it's like this pool uniform, like the classic swimsuit that men used to wear.
Yeah, like the old I'm imagining the kind of the outfit that old weightlifters used to be in. Kind of like that.
Yeah, kind of like that. And he's like got a cap on and stuff like that. It's just funny. As the scene is kind of going on, you kind of get the first hint, that Finkel and Captain K might have a thing going on.
Wait,
Finkel is his
Captain K and Finkel the male assistant.
Yeah,
in Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
All right, I'm in.
Yeah. So you kind of get the hint that that's happening. And this is the first close-up. I know we had mentioned the shoes before. This is the first close-up that we actually get on Rosie's shoes. She's got a pair of white and red shoes. They're very distinctive, and this is the first time that we get that close up. Captain K and JoJo talk about what he would do if, like, what would Captain K do if he ever saw a Jewish person, and Captain K says that he should tell him and he'll tell the Gestapo. And then JoJo says, well, what would happen if I told? And he's like, well, the Gestapo would probably kill the Jewish person and anyone helping the Jewish person, and then he'd probably kill a bunch of other people just to be sure.
And I feel like I feel like I remember this scene, and Sam Rockwell's very like nonchalant about it because you can tell he doesn't care.
Yeah, he's just like
he does not care about this whole anti-Jewishness thing that the Third Reich has going on. For him, it's like he's a soldier. He wants to fight in wars, but he doesn't care who the people on the other side are. He's just a man. He's just a military man. That's it. So this whole idea of, well, we have to round up the Jews, like, tell the Gestapo, I don't care.
Yeah, he's like, I don't care.
This is silliness, and I don't even know why we're doing that.
So JoJo tells him that he doesn't know what a Jewish person would even look like, and Captain K says, oh, someone should write a book. This is kind of funny.
Someone should write a book.
So JoJo goes back and they talk to Elsa, and he's like, we're at a Mexican stalemate, pretty much explaining the situation, like, I can't tell anyone because we'll all die. And she's like, it's not a Mexican stalemate. It's just a regular stalemate.
Okay. Her performance there, and where she's somewhat combative, kind of sassy. Is there some inspiration here? Because I feel like I'm seeing something, and I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, you're seeing a bratty girl. Because Taika Waititi talked to Thomason, like, after she had prepped for months for this role. And she's like, yeah, I did all these different things. And Taika Waititi was like, no, watch Mean Girls and Heathers.
What?
that was what he said to kind of her
Mean Girls?
Yeah.
I love it.
And Heathers. JoJo's like, all right, well, we have to make the best of the situation. Tell me about your Jewish people and everything about you guys, because I want to write this book. So she starts telling him just ridiculous stuff.
Oh, wait, so he's going to write this book?
Yeah, he's going to write the book.
He's going to write the book? Okay,
Yeah.
I thought that was just like a passing thing. He's going to...
He wants to write this book. He wants to write this book.
I love it.
Because it becomes a key thing later. So they're writing this book, and she's just pretty much confirming every last thing that they had said, even embellishing things herself. She's like basically saying that they come from this like fantasy land and stuff like that. They like the taste of blood, and they say that they can't eat food. Like, food is toxic, so if JoJo ever comes across some food and he wanted to kill her, that he should just leave the food for her.
So she freaking Jedi mind tricks him into giving her something to eat?
Well, tries to, because JoJo does realize that she's trying to get that. So he's like, we don't have enough food, so I don't know what you're going to do. And then she says that Rosie has been giving her food and that she's nice. She actually treats her like a person. And he says, but you're not a real person. And then she looks at him and says, well, are you? And then JoJo really gets defensive, and he basically starts talking about how he is of Aryan stock, and that she's pretty much like a worthless Jewish person, and that his like hair is as blonde as this, and his eyes are as blue as this. And
but
then
really an indication that he's never considered that question.
Oh,
before,
exactly.
Why she's not a person, quote unquote, and why he thinks he is.
Yeah. So
he's never given that a real. He's never really self-reflected of where does that idea come from.
Well, what he starts talking about is just all these things that were propagated in Nazi Germany, that the Aryan stock is the strongest stock in the world. And he starts espousing these things to her. But then she immediately grabs him, tells him to break free. And she's like, you have to break free because there's no weak Jewish people. And she starts basically saying that, she descended from people that killed giants and they had the blood of angels and different things like that. And JoJo gets scared again and runs off.
I mean, that's kind of badass that she's using those, ancient biblical tales to somewhat reclaim her power as a human being, and to hearken to that of to why not only is she a human being, but she is a strong-willed and powerful human being that comes from a long line of strong, capable humans.
Yes.
And that's awesome.
Now, Rosie comes home that night, and you see her start burning these little slips of paper. Now, before, whenever they were at the execution post, these same slips of paper were actually posted all over the bodies of the people that were hanged. So it's very odd that she would be burning these. And then you hear Adolf in the background, and he's like, I wonder what she's burning. And he starts like looking at him. He's like, what are you burning? Just yelling. And she's like, she can't hear you.
You do a beautiful German accent, by the way. Have I told you that?
Rosie starts celebrating, and JoJo seems very upset by this, because he's like, what do you have to celebrate? She's like, the Allies are coming. They already took Italy. They're going to take France, and Germany's going to lose the war. JoJo is a fanatic, as I've said, so he's very upset by this. He's like, why are you happy about this? He's like, no, we're going to win the war. As they start arguing, she claims that they're Switzerland. There's no political talk at this table.
Did she actually say Switzerland?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So JoJo insults his mom, and he says that she wouldn't understand the plight of him being disfigured, and his father would understand. So she gets up. She's like, you want to talk to your father? So she puts on his father's outfit, smears some charcoal on her face, and then yells at him and says, don't you ever talk to your mother like that. Loses her shit. This is the first time that you've ever seen any type of malice towards JoJo. And this is where I think she was like, I need to let this out. JoJo is very scared. And then she turns into the corner and she has this back and forth with herself as if she's his dad and her. He's like, I yelled at the kid. I need to go apologize. So he goes and he, quote unquote, apologizes. And Paul is the name of his dad. And he's like, you need to take it easy on your mom. She's doing what she can, which if you think back to what was said previously at the post, whenever JoJo asked
what they can.
Yeah.
Or what they can.
Could.
Interesting.
They reconcile. They start to dance into the night. Elsa can hear the music playing and there's a hint of a smile, but there's never a smile on her face throughout this entire movie. Aside from
Elsa, the girl in the attic.
Yeah, Elsa's the girl in the attic. So the next day, he comes up to Elsa and he asks to draw where the Jewish people come from. She explains that he's being stupid, but then she also mentions that her fiance Nathan lives in France and he's fighting with resistance and that she's going to go and she's going to be with him after this. And he was a lover of poetry, specifically Rilke.
I don't think I asked this. How old is Elsa supposed to be here?
I think she's supposed to be 16, 17, something around that region.
Interesting. And she's already talking about having a fiance?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you got to think it was...
right, yeah, this is 1930s, 1940s, or 1940s, yeah, now 40s. Because we're about to be to the end.
Yeah.
But that still seems young. I don't know. But I guess for the 1940s, maybe that was not necessarily an unusual time to kind of already be betrothed. So.
Well, I mean, think about this. I mean, how many people went off to war and came back and immediately got married?
Well, and that's a good point. You're absolutely right. I mean, we did, and I think you're kind of hitting the nail on the head there. How many high school sweethearts, people that were either about to finish high school or have just finished high school that were already getting engaged because the idea was, well, let's do this now because there's no guarantee you're coming back.
Exactly.
And, I want to have this already have happened so so that the women that are left back home don't have to live on with this regret of, I never got to marry the man, what have you.
So one of the things is that he is a lover of poetry. Like I said, the poet.
The fiance.
Yeah, the fiance, Nathan, who is Rilke, I think that's the way you say that, Rilke, who is a German poet. And so she, as she's drawing this photo, she gives JoJo a very unflattering caricature of himself. And he's like, this is just a picture of my head. And she's like, yeah, that's where they live. The Jewish people that he thinks.
Got it. Nice. They live in your head, rent free.
So now JoJo has a new angle here. What he wants to do is he's like, all right, I'm going to use my knowledge of Nathan and his artist that he likes, or this poet that he likes, to try to manipulate her a little bit. So he goes and he finds this book by Rilke and he writes this letter as if he's Nathan. And he basically says that she needs to leave. He's upset. He's breaking up with her. And then he quotes Rilke in the letter. It's almost like he's giving a book report, but he's just barely quoting what he needs to quote to get by. When he gets back, he reads the letter and Elsa's very upset. So then he goes and he writes another letter. He's like, I take it back. He's like, I take back what I said in the first one. And she comes out of the little cupboard. So they have this back and forth where JoJo's naming all these famous Germans, including Rilke. She's like, oh yeah, your precious Rilke. But then she starts talking about Stein and all of these really well-known German or Jewish people, including at the very end she does this weird hand movement as if she's in Naruto, and she's including Jesus Christi, who is Jesus Christ.
Oh, got him.
And so JoJo gets upset, he storms off again because he's like, you'll just name anybody now, I don't even know these people.
I feel like we should count how many times you have to say JoJo gets upset, because I know that's not that's definitely what is happening.
Yeah.
There's so many times he goes to the room and leaves in a huff.
Yeah.
Because he's just so mad that she has once again said something that forces him to be introspective about his beliefs.
Yeah,
and
he just can't believe it.
Yeah, he just can't accept it. He has to keep going away
like,
to
I'm gonna go
recollect
talk to
himself. Go talk to his freaking imaginary friend and get offered a cigarette.
So now it flashes forward, and Rosie and JoJo spend some time talking by this river. It looks like the Rhine, I'm thinking. She's telling him that the war is going to end, and they need to have something that was good.
Right.
And so Rosie starts trying to tie JoJo's shoes for him because, again, he can't tie his own shoes. So she ties them together. And there's a sweet moment where, like, she is, like, running away. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, you're going to be stuck. And he's like, no, Mom, help, because he's stuck. She tells JoJo that life is a gift and that they need to dance to show God that they are grateful to be alive. And then they start dancing. And there's this scene where she's dancing, and, again, it focuses on her shoes and JoJo talking, like, up to her. So... again, we talk about the shoes. Elsa and JoJo continue their conversations about the Jewish people, like with her just embellishing everything. And then there's scenes where it flashes like to Adolf, like looking at them longingly because he's jealous.
Oh, God.
So he's like, you guys are getting a lot closer. And JoJo lies to him and tells him it's only for the book. And this is where you start seeing that it may be a fictional, imaginary version of Adolf Hitler, but it's Adolf Hitler. He starts incorporating his classic phrases and mannerisms and just hateful speech into what he's talking about with JoJo.
So JoJo has this imaginary friend, Adolf Hitler, right?
Yeah.
But it's definitely not the Adolf Hitler that we know from history. It's this guy that's like, Heil me, man. Being super cool and fun and almost being a little bit like his mother or the father that his mother sometimes portrays, poking a little bit of fun at him. But as he becomes more of an antagonistic character, an antagonistic presence in JoJo's life, he becomes more and more like the Hitler that we all know, the one that we are all familiar with. And it's almost showing that, JoJo's innocence was because he was given this visage of Hitler as a buddy or a pal, but now he's starting to see Hitler for what he truly was and starting to accept that he doesn't really like that person.
Yeah. It's almost as if, to me, when I was watching the movie, as the time goes on and he starts talking with Elsa more and he realizes that Jewish people are not what Hitler said, it's almost as if this whole facade is starting to end and the curtain's starting to come up and he's starting to realize, oh, this is just how Hitler's been this entire time. I just thought that he was nice.
Oh, almost even for us as the audience.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so as time goes off...
that view.
Yeah. So there's another scene where Elsa and Rosie are talking about life after the war, and Elsa's talking about what she's going to be doing. And then she asks Rosie how she can trust someone, because you can tell this is kind of about JoJo. And she says, you just have to trust him. So the next day, Captain K's preparing the city for invasion. There's an
invasion's about to happen.
Yeah, the invasion's about to happen.
Oh,
like this
here we go.
is going quick. The movie, I think, only comes in about an hour and 49 minutes.
I remember that. I remember it being... and I think, again, one of the things that speaks very highly to this director, his ability to give us a lot of development, a lot of characterization, a lot of plot and theme, and not drag it out.
Exactly.
He knows how to give us that quick, down and dirty, let's introduce these characters, let's get you guys acclimated. I mean, even with the using the backdrop of this camp to give us a kind of a full view of what the different things, the different ongoings that Germany had found itself in under Nazi occupation. He's just really good at making us, getting us along so that he doesn't have to make a 3-hour film or a 2-hour podcast.
So there's a funny moment where he's talking about German shepherds that he needed for the city, but he's like, I didn't mean actual German shepherds, and it's just shepherds that are German, like real people.
Just like some guy that's a shepherd but is also German.
Yeah. And then JoJo tells him that he's writing a expose called You Who Jew. That's the actual name of the book.
You Who Jew.
Yeah, that's what he's writing.
Jesus fucking Christ.
So Captain K, he doesn't really care. And he's just like, hey, look at this outfit I'm designing. It's very garish. And he's like, it involves like feathers in that, like a big old pluming feather in the hat. a cape, and then he's like, "This is a Gatling gun mounted with a radio. It emits annoying music." So it's funny.
Doesn't it turn out to be like Wagner or something?
I forget exactly what.
I don't know who. Yeah, I don't know who he starts blasting, but yeah, that'll come later. That'll come later.
And so he tells him that he's got to do another task. It's more demeaning than what he's used to. So he's walking around like this cardboard outfit, like as a metal man, collecting metal for the war effort. And then he spots Rosie, and she's hanging up Free Germany postings all around town. So this is where he knows, like, oh no, she really is doing something that she's not.
This is confirmation that Rosie didn't just like meet this one Jewish girl and, you know, kind of like the Daily Trope. Oh, I have a black friend. This wasn't that kind of thing where she just met this one person and felt some empathy for her and decided to hide her, and it was a one-off thing. But she is full blown in the resistance effort there in Germany to fight the Nazi occupation.
Oh yeah, there is a scene in the movie where it enforces that Elsa actually knew JoJo before this actually happened because she was friends with Inga, who was JoJo's deceased sister, and she remembers him being a funny little boy.
Interesting.
So yeah, it kind of ties it together that she knew Elsa before this. So JoJo meets Yorkie, and now Yorkie is actually a full-fledged soldier.
Okay, is it just me, or does Yorkie give off vibes of the little boy that wants to eat everything from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? Like that's every time I think about Yorkie, that's what I think of. He's just like, he's the little kid that's just like, oh hey, I'm very happy to be here. Look at all this chocolate.
But he's my favorite freaking character in the whole movie because now he's talking about this outfit that he has. He's like, hey, is this paper? Because he's looking at his outfit. He's like, why are you dressed in paper? He's like, it's not paper, it's paper-like. He's just.
I also just love how Yorkie is also very much like Captain K a lot of times, where he's not really into the whole effort. No. He's just kind of like, oh, I'm doing this now. Well, that seems fun. He's so Taoist.
And then JoJo tells him that he's captured a Jewish person, and Yorkie's like, okay, whatever. I got more important things to worry about.
I got my paper uniform. I got to go.
So JoJo finds some colored pencils, and he brings them to Elsa for her to draw some pictures for his book. This is where it starts to show that he does have an attraction to her. And then he like mentions offhandedly that he's like, and I'll never be kissed because he's too ugly. And then she says, oh no, you'll be kissed. And she asked if he wants her to kiss him. And he's like, now listen, Nazis and Jewish people are not even supposed to hang out like we do. So let alone kiss. And he's like, and it would only be a sympathy kiss too. And it wouldn't count. So Elsa tells him, you're not a Nazi. And then he's like,
I'm massively into swastikas, so I think that's a pretty good sign right there.
yeah.
I'm massively into swastikas. Yeah, because that's the only marker. That's all you got. Yeah, that's how that works.
And she says, no, you're not a Nazi. You just want to be a part of the group.
It's interesting because she's putting it in this high school context, much like you were talking about, this idea of the Mean Girls, bringing that into the character, but her alluding to this being groupthink, that he doesn't truly believe what he's espousing, but this is all just the groupthink because he's desperate to belong. And we see that throughout the film, this desperation to be part of the group, to be accepted and not to be an outcast, and how powerful it is to not want to be part of the outcasted group.
I mean, that kind of ties back to the Nazi regime in general. It became a go with the crowd kind of thing I'm not going to say all of the Nazis, but there were quite a few Nazis that were only Nazis by proxy.
Sure. I mean, Captain K is kind of
exactly
a personification of that as well.
This is where, as they're talking, there's a knock at the door, and the Gestapo, led by Herman Dietz, who's Stephen Merchant. And I forgot how tall Stephen Merchant is.
Oh, he's freaking huge.
Because he towers over everybody.
I think he's like 6'5" or something crazy like that.
He is huge. Like in the scene, I was like, oh my God, he's tall.
But we should also note that I love the casting here because, I think we all kind of have that... going back to Willy Wonka, that the bald man that we later find out that Willy Wonka was paying to bribe the kids into stealing secrets. That's the kind of character we think of when we think of Gestapo. Very scary man that comes in the middle of the night and he wears a fedora and his eyes are black. And then they got Stephen Merchant,
Yeah.
who is just like the friendliest faced guy. You look at his face and you're just like, oh, is he here to give out teddy bears?
Well, he walks in and like the way he introduces himself, he's just like, Heil Hitler, and he's very smiley about it.
Oh yeah, I remember this because it's not Heil Hitler. It's not German.
No,
it's not very Prussian. It's very like, oh, hello.
Yeah. Well,
Guten Tag.
it's funny because he starts telling them he just wants to come in for a second because he's got to do some investigations. And he's like, I'm just stopping by. And as he walks through, his entire Gestapo cadre comes by. Every last one of them walks through the door like, Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler. There's like a lot of this. And that's a trope that keeps happening throughout this entire thing. So every time a character gets introduced to the scene, they have to go back through and everyone Heil Hitlers each other. It is ridiculous.
But again, very June Cleaver about it. Very Heil Hitler.
Heil Hitler.
Not, like, hello.
Yeah.
Good morning.
So they walk in and they start tearing the place apart. Captain K and Finkel come in and they say that they were coming to drop off some pamphlets for JoJo, basically saying, oh no, he works for us down at the depot, trying to basically tell him, no, he's a good kid. He's a full Nazi. Stop whatever you're doing. It is clear that they're looking for something, and after admiring JoJo's room, because, JoJo's got swastikas all over the room, and his character, like Herman Dietz's character, is like, this is what I think a German boy's room should look like. And then he says that, and you might have heard that Hitler only has one ball. He actually has 4. It was like, wait, what?
Thanks for clarifying that. we were also worried about the number of testicles.
So then he starts questioning JoJo about his mom and if she leaves often and all that kind of stuff. And he says, she's really busy. And he's like, I'm sure she is.
So this investigation, they're not looking for Elsa.
No.
They're investigating his mother.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
He looks at his outfit and he's like, this is your uniform's in order, but where's your knife? Because remember, earlier, Elsa had taken his knife. So
I knew that was going to come back and bite him in the ass.
Yeah, that's a part of his outfit. He's supposed to have it. He's like, every Hitler Youth should have their DJ knife. And this is where Elsa walks in as Inga.
She pretends to be the sister.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's a bold move, Cut. Let's see if it works out for her.
So she walks in, and there's a moment where he's like, Heil Hitler. And you can see that there's conflict within her. And she's like, do I do this? Then she has to Heil Hitler the entire room.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, she's playing the role of a spy.
Yeah.
If she wants to look at it in kind of a really weird context, and as a spy, sometimes you're going to have to say things that you don't believe in, and that's and for her very survival, it was going to depend on that.
Exactly.
So, it's interesting though. I do remember that and again, going back to the director's brilliance and being able to condense big moments into small snippets, you can see that conflict.
Exactly. So they ask her to produce her paperwork. And so she goes to look for it, and Captain K's like, no, come on, you got to give it to me. So Captain K checks her paperwork, and then he's like, confirm your birthday, and she says, it's May 1st. He's like, that's correct. Go get a new photo because you look like a ghost in this one. They discovered JoJo's book, and they are just loving this. They think all the fantastical things that they've come up with, they are just laughing at everything. Then they point out there's a lot of drawings involving the maim and torture of Nathan. You can see that there's some more conflict on
no.
Yeah, because they're talking about this.
Because Elsa didn't know about that.
No.
Okay.
And he's like, there's like die, Nathan, die, and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And
he's a jealous little boy. He has a crush.
Exactly.
And he's jealous of, this. And I don't remember if it's even true or not, but the story of this fiance that she supposedly has.
You can see that there's more conflict on her face because now she's dealing with this, that she now hears that JoJo really doesn't like Nathan after she's told all these stories. But then she's also scared because there's Gestapo in the house. But then Captain K tells Inga that it was good to meet her and that they all start to leave. And he advises JoJo to stay home and to look after his family. As they're leaving, JoJo congratulates Elsa and he's like, you fooled him. And she's like, May 7th. And he's like, what? She's like, that's her birthday. It was wrong. Like, she gave him the wrong birthday. And Captain K let it go. So she says that it's not over and that they're going to be back and that Jew and Nazi are not friends. That's exactly how she says it.
And I think even it's weird because obviously as children they're panicking here, right? Because they're like, oh shit, we fucked up.
Yeah.
But I think we as the audience, and maybe it was just me, I don't know if we were expected to have this reaction as the audience, but me as the audience, I started thinking, this is a further reflection that Captain K doesn't care about the whole, Jewish people are different bullshit. That's not what he's about. He could care less. So he probably in that moment realized exactly who she was and exactly what was going on, but it's not important to him and he doesn't care. And if he had to lie for the kid because he had grown some fondness for this kid, he's perfectly fine with it because to him, this is not what the fight should be about.
Well, you get the impression that Captain K actually knew the family before this. So he knew that Inga was dead. Because JoJo does tell Elsa that no one knows that Inga died.
Yeah.
That Captain K mentions at the beginning of the movie. This is just like a little part, so I didn't really mention it, but now it kind of comes back. Where he says, "Oh, his mother's going to kill me" as soon as he sees. So
right. You did mention that. No, you did.
Did I?
You said that when the kid is like he's just been blown up by a grenade. Yes, you did mention that, and I didn't even realize that. That's a good point. So that was an indication of familiarity, that he did know who this family was. You're absolutely right.
And he greeted her as a friend whenever he first met her, and then she kicks him in the nuts. So he knew this family. So he would have known when Inga's birthday was.
And it's a good indication as well, because if he didn't know the family, he wouldn't have said, "Oh my God, his mother's going to kill me," knowing full well that the mother is the force to be reckoned with. He would have said, "His father is going to kill me." That that would have shown that there was a lack of familiarity there. But he knew exactly who the parental figure that he would have to be dealing with because of this incident was going to be. That's a very good point. I did not catch that.
Think about what he just told Elsa too. He said, "You need to get a new picture. You look like a ghost." He knows that Inga's dead.
He does know.
Yeah.
Oh man. Wow. I missed all of those context clues. All of them. I missed all of them. But yes, you're clearly correct here that he's known the whole time.
Yeah. Like what you just said, Captain K doesn't care. He's letting them go. He's telling JoJo, just stay home. He goes off and he's talking to Adolf again. And this is where Adolf comes full circle as Hitler. As he's talking about how he just needs to forget Elsa and he needs to stop hanging out with her, he starts launching into a classic Hitler tirade. The German army is going to crush their opponents, and it's very dead on for Hitler. He tells JoJo to sort out his priorities, and then he just leaves. Now, the next day, JoJo's outside. He's just chasing a butterfly, and it's a really happy moment. Then he looks up, and he sees a pair of shoes. They are white and red, and he notices they are his mom's shoes.
And this
he looks up, and this is
at the gallows.
This is at the gallows. And you don't ever see her face, but you just see him hug her feet. And then he attempts to tie her shoes, and he can't do it.
Because he doesn't know how to tie shoes.
He doesn't know how to tie shoes. So then he just hugs her feet and cries. So there's a pan, and this is really interesting to me. I don't know if this is just German architecture in general, but it pans around, and all of the houses seem to have eyes that are looking down on him.
That is actually a thing. And it was actually my wife who pointed that out, that this is, and I don't know if it's specifically German. I think it's just European.
Okay.
This idea of houses having these windows up top that look like eyes.
Yeah.
We actually saw some of this in Romania as well. Okay. So this is, you're absolutely right. You're very astute observation. That is an architectural thing that you'll see in Europe.
And I really liked that scene because it was almost as if not only JoJo's crying, but that the town is crying for him.
Oh, I like that. I like that interpretation. That's cool.
So JoJo is distraught, and he goes home, and he just walks up to Elsa, and he's got his knife in his hand. And in his grief, he stabs her. Now, the cut is really shallow, so it doesn't really do that much damage, but he does stab her. And then he just drops the knife, walks away, and falls to the ground crying. And Elsa just sits beside him in silence.
So she just got stabbed and still has empathy for him?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, what an amazing character.
Because I think she knows what's going on, and she knows.
I don't care if your mom dies, AJ. You fucking stab me, I'm going to be pissed. I'm not going to be nice about it. I'm like, oh, well, his mom just died. No, fuck you. You just stabbed me, you son of a bitch.
Well, my mom's a listener, so...
You hear this, AJ's mom? If you pass and he stabs me, I'm going to kick him in the balls. I'm going to kick him in all 4 testicles. It's fucking bullshit.
They're looking out and they're kind of talking back and forth about Rosie's work, and that Elsa did know about it, and that his father is involved in this from afar somehow. She doesn't really know what's going on, or she doesn't know too much about it, but she explains that she didn't want to get JoJo into trouble like Rosie didn't, because he was a fanatic, and she thinks that him knowing would have put him in danger as well, because she knows how the Gestapo work. They will kill everyone involved, not just the person that did it. Now, as they are talking, there's air raid sirens. They're ringing out. So there's bombs being dropped on their town. JoJo explains that he now has no one, and Elsa talks about how she came to be there and that she watched her parents get loaded onto a train, and says that this is the kind of train that you don't come back from. And they both agree when the war is over that when she's free, they're just going to dance, kind of like how Rosie had talked about earlier.
All right. And that's another theme, because obviously we see the theme with the shoes throughout the film, and another big theme is dancing.
Yeah.
And kind of even plays into what you were talking about earlier about how we keep hearing all these renditions of classic rock songs, but being done in German. The music and the dancing is very important to
exactly. So now JoJo's walking around a bombed-out city. He's looking for food for both of them. JoJo and Elsa just, as a unit, just keep surviving. And JoJo's writing more Nathan letters, and there's just all these kind of things that kind of just pull them together closer after his mom has passed. So one day he's outside, and he runs into Yorkie, and Yorkie is frantic. And he's telling JoJo, the Allies are at the gates. The entire world is coming for them. And then he also, at this moment, he takes the time to say, JoJo, I'm sorry about your mom. I cried for ages when I heard about this, like giving him his condolences, because he does care for JoJo a lot. And
it's almost forgivable, though, for Yorkie to not have said something beforehand. It's like, there's kind of a war going on, and you're kind of involved. So, it's okay, Yorkie.
He explains that the entire world is coming for them, and that they're only friends with the Japanese. And he's like,
I'm only friends with the Japanese, and just between you and me, they don't look very Aryan.
JoJo tells...
Between you and me, I don't look very Aryan.
I thought it was funny.
Really, you caught on to that, did you, kid?
JoJo tells Yorkie that Elsa's still living there, like the Jewish girl, and he's like, she's pretty much my girlfriend now. And Yorkie's like, oh, I'm happy for you. You got a girlfriend. And then JoJo's like, but she's Jewish. And he's like, there's more important things to worry about than Jewish people right now, like the Russians.
See, I'm telling you, Yorkie is just tiny Captain K. That's what he is. He's just like we're doing the war now. Yeah. Isn't this just fun?
He does tell JoJo that Hitler killed himself, because JoJo didn't know this. He's like, wait, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, he killed himself, and it seems that he was hiding a lot of things. He was like hiding a lot of bad things from everyone. He's like, I don't know if we actually chose the right side in this one.
See, this has all the markers of that.
The goodies and the baddies.
That's exactly what I was saying. What are their names?
The Whitest Kids You Know, I think.
No, not the Whitest Kids You Know. It was the British duo. That Mitchell and Webb look.
Oh, that Mitchell and Webb look.
Yes, that Mitchell and Webb look, where they're Nazis on the war front, and the one looks at the other and goes, "Have you noticed we've got skulls on our caps? Are we the baddies?" They start having an internal conflict.
I thought the same thing when I was watching the movie. They run into Frau Reim, who is like, she's basically just like ushering these kids to war. She's got all these kids around her. She ties a grenade to one little kid, and she's like, hey, you see that American over there? Go give him a hug. And sends him off.
Oh, God.
And then she's like, JoJo, you're not wearing your uniform. Hold on, let me put this on you. Puts a German jacket on him, like a German officer uniform, or not officer, but like a soldier. And he's like, oh, this is just so they know not to shoot you. It's like, what? And then she goes into the fray just holding a machine gun, just blasting, and then there's an explosion and goes off, and she's dead.
Bye, Rebel.
Bye. So this is where JoJo really looks around, and it's a very like classical song that's playing in the background. He's looking around at the destruction, and he really sees how crazy the Nazi fanaticism has been, that all of this led to all of this destruction. Like, this is clearly not something that he wants. And then he looks over and he sees Captain K in the outfit he drew earlier. It's got like this really long purple or a pink cape, or I know it's red. So it's a red cape. He's got the feathers going on. He's like, looks very heroic. And then Finkel looks exactly the same, but the outfits are fucking ridiculous.
They are fucking fabulous is what they are.
Ridiculous.
And am I remembering correctly, doesn't he incorporate the pink triangle into his outfit?
I can't remember. I didn't catch that.
I feel like he did. Like I
know he had pink boots and he had like pink ribbons and stuff all over his outfit.
Because I swear he did.
No, go ahead.
Captain, what is it?
Finkel.
Captain.
Freddie Finkel. But like during this time that they're shooting, like they're just like looking around, and then like Freddy and him just start shooting wildly off into the side. Like Freddy just points his gun up in the air and just starts shooting and laughing. And then they start running off into the battle, and then JoJo runs and hides while the battle rages.
On Finkel's hat, there's something that kind of looks like a red triangle, the pink triangle. So, but maybe I'm completely misremembering that, because I swear there was something that gave the impression where it's like, because obviously he's in makeup too. That's the other thing. This is very much, there's this clear intent to make them flamboyant, for lack of a better word. And I could have just superimposed this on, but I could have swore they had incorporated the pink triangle somewhere in the outfit to kind of basically say, yeah, I fight for the German cause, because he's a, you know, in a weird way, still patriotic despite everything that's been going on, but he's also realized, I also know who I am, and it's something that the Nazis would not be okay with. But that doesn't define me. What defines me is that I am a soldier.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, in JoJo Rabbit, both Captain K and Freddy Finkel's self-made uniforms have upside-down pink triangles.
Oh,
so
okay.
They did have that. Okay, I could have swore I noticed that. And so, yeah, I think that was just kind of a... And for anybody in our audience that may not be aware, obviously there were the yellow stars of David that were... that Jewish persons were made to wear to identify them as Jewish persons. It was another way of the Nazi occupation to other Jewish people. Mm-hmm. But these weren't the only people that had symbols. All the groups that Nazis considered to be undesirable had symbols, whether it was socialists, liberals, the handicapped, persons of color, but homosexuals had the pink triangle. And that was the indication that they were, involved in what they referred to as the time as undesirable behavior. So obviously our indication here is that Captain K and Finkel have a relationship, that they are romantically involved. And they reflect this in their outfits that they wear for their final heroic battle, because it's clear what they've decided is, I may have to go out fighting against the other side, but I'm going to do it as me. I'm not going to do it as a German in whatever uniform. No, I'm going to do it in the clothes that make me feel comfortable, and being exactly who I know I am.
So the Germans obviously lose the battle, as we all know. And while walking around after the fact, JoJo sees like all of these Americans and Russians celebrating. But then he's grabbed by a soldier because he's still wearing the Nazi uniform.
Oh, right, shit.
Yeah. And so he's placed with a lot of other German soldiers, including a disheveled Captain K. He survived. He looks beat the hell up, but he's actually survived. And he's talking about, this is the it. This is it, the end. And then he tells JoJo he shouldn't be scared. He also tells JoJo that he's sorry for Rosie, and that he explains that she was truly a good person that did what she could.
So going right back to that same line.
So he, I think, knew exactly what she was doing this entire time. I think he knew his dad. I think he knew everything that was going on, and he just let it transpire. I'm pretty sure. So knowing that he's about to be executed, he hugs JoJo, tells him, he looks good. But then he strips the uniform off and shoos him away, and he calls him a dirty Jew, like basically just shooing him away. Those are his exact words, guys. I'm just saying that.
Well, this is important because what he's doing is a very heroic. Obviously the character has been heroic throughout the entire film, but this is a heroic last moment. He literally takes the kids, the jacket that he's wearing, which shows him to be a Nazi, tears it off his shoulders, and then pushes him away and starts, calling him a Jew and saying that he's nothing but a filthy Jew, because he wants the Americans to believe this little story that he's just concocted, that this kid is not one of them, because he knows what fate he's about to suffer.
And then they start beating the ever-living shit out of him and carry him away.
Captain K.
Yeah, Captain K. And JoJo is telling him no, like he's screaming at them no, and they tell him to go away. And the entire time, Captain K is smiling at him. And as he's ushered off, JoJo hears gunshots, and he runs off because he knows that Captain K has just been executed. On his way home, he goes to see Yorkie for one final time, and Yorkie tells him that he's going to go home and he's got to go see his mother because he needs a good cuddle.
Oh, Yorkie. You sweet little bastard.
See, I was watching this with my girlfriend and I was just like, same, Yorkie, same. And then he explains it's not a good time to be a Nazi, but he's happy that JoJo has a girlfriend and his girlfriend can now be free.
I remember him exactly saying that too. It's not a good time to be
It's
a
not
Nazi.
a good time to be a Nazi.
in his adorable little German voice.
Well, he doesn't even really use a German voice. He just uses his British accent. It's funny. JoJo then run home knowing that this could be the end for him and Elsa. And so when Elsa questions JoJo about what's going on, he lies and he's crying about, like, you can tell that he's breaking down because he knows if he tells her the truth, she's probably going to leave. So he lies and says that the Germans won and that she can't go. So he's thumbing through their book and he comes across a picture of his mom, and then he sees a picture of a boy standing in front of a cage with a rabbit. Knowing that he needs to let her go, he can't keep lying, so he creates one final Nathan letter, but he doesn't actually write anything down. He's just reading off of a blank piece of paper.
So he's just speaking from the heart.
Just saying that JoJo and him have plans for her to escape and that she can now go and live in Paris with them. And then he says that she doesn't need to worry about JoJo. He'll be fine. So she comes out of the cupboard and she tells JoJo that Nathan's dead. He actually died a year ago of tuberculosis, but thanks JoJo for the notes. And then JoJo's like, that's weird. So who's been writing these notes? And then she thanks him. It's just a very sweet moment. And then JoJo gives himself one final pep talk. The same one kind of he was giving himself in the beginning, but this time it's a little bit different. Then, as he's about to get ready to leave, Adolf storms in, but Adolf clearly has a gunshot wound to the head in this part.
Oh, so even in his imagination, he's incorporating the things that he's been hearing, like from his friend, about what has transpired with Hitler. Interesting.
So he tells JoJo that he's not going to leave and that they're going to stay right there. And he's going to go back to being a Nazi. And then he tries to give JoJo this armband that's a Nazi armband and says, you're going to wear this. And JoJo throws the armband down and says, no. And then, Adolf is like pleading with him. He's like, come on, man, heil me for old time's sake. And then JoJo says, fuck off, Hitler, and kicks him out the window.
Does he kick him in the balls?
No, I think he just kicks him in the chest, but he like flies out the window and the window like crashes.
Oh, so it gives him more of a this is Sparta move.
Yeah.
Good job, JoJo.
So before they go outside, JoJo and Elsa are getting prepared, and so he looks down and he sees that her shoes are untied. They look a lot like his mom's shoes. So JoJo kneels down and he successfully ties her shoes. First time he's done that the entire movie. So Elsa and him go outside. She looks around and she sees that the Allies have won. So she turns around and slaps JoJo for lying, first off.
Well, yeah. Let's get that out of the way, clearly.
And JoJo's like, I probably deserved that.
He's like, I did stab you earlier, so,
So JoJo asks what they should do now, and then Elsa just starts to dance. And JoJo also starts to dance as you hear the German version of David Bowie's Heroes playing in the background. And then this is the first time in the entire movie you see Elsa truly smile as they continue to dance. And as the song is playing in the background, and I love the song so much, there's a quote by a man called Rainier Maria Rilke, who is the poet that Nathan really loved. It says, let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going, no feeling is final. And then the credits roll. So there's a lot of things that go into this movie. There's a lot of imagery that really plays, like with the shoes, and it just seems that as time goes on, you really do start to see JoJo grow. And that's what I really like, is that you don't start and you see, oh, this is Nazi fanaticism. This is all he's ever going to be. You actually see that not every German during this time was the same.
And as you were talking, I kind of realized they gave us pieces of all of the different, much like we saw in the beginning with kind of giving us a recap of Nazism up until this point, under the camp. We kind of did the same thing with each of the characters. We have a Gestapo character who clearly believes all of the propaganda.
Exactly.
He is a true believer. We have a Captain K who is simply a warrior. He's what you might consider your everyday German, could really care less about what's going on. He just wants to do his job, and his job, and it just happens to be that his job is as a soldier. He just wants to do his job. He doesn't care about all this other crap. You have a resistance person, a person who is, again, seems just like your normal everyday average mother, but really she is a major player in fighting against the Nazi occupation.
Exactly.
And then in the midst of all of this, we have JoJo and Elsa, who are just two children that are just trying to figure out where they fit into all this and realizing that they have been plunged into certain roles that they have to fulfill and are trying to question why.
I think that at the end of this movie, I was expecting to be like, okay, well, no, it's just another one of those like feel good type of movies, but it wasn't a feel good type of movie. Yeah, no. It made you feel good in some ways, but then to me, it felt like the first time that I think I remember watching, like I said, Schindler's List or The Piano, or The Pianist, sorry, not The Piano, but The Pianist. Yeah. But movies along those same lines where there's moments where you feel good, but at the end, it's like, no, this is actually really terrible. I mean, these kids now have to go on and they have each other, but terrible things have happened to them. Like I said, we're going to be tying this up in just a second, but there's one thing that I want to reiterate. We are not in any way, shape, or form glorifying, and this movie does not glorify Nazism. It doesn't glorify anything that has to do with fascism. It doesn't glorify with those ideals at all. Yes, this was a comedic interpretation of what happened, but it is in no way, shape, or form embracing or propagating any of this. Now, there was some division at the end of this whenever they did release the movie, that some people felt that it was doing that, or at least making light of the situation by making like Holocaust jokes about it. But then the C. Showa Foundation actually worked with Searchlight to develop a classroom curriculum because they thought the depiction of Nazism in this was so accurate. They wanted to be able to expand this into a way to teach people what was going on during that time. So there's actually like a foundation, the foundation's website, you can actually find links that talk about this movie and what the actual like portrayals of the Nazis were in this.
And what was the name of that organization again? C. Showa?
C. Showa.
C. Showa, yeah. Okay. So for our listeners, and I would honestly invite our listeners, don't take our word for it. Don't even take C. Showa's word for it. Don't take the director's word for it. Let this be the death of the artist and experience it yourself. Decide for yourself. Is this glorification? Is it accurate representation? Is it a way to, as AJ and I have kind of seen it, was this a way for the director to show us that don't think just because, you may like the character of a film or a book or the person living down the street from you, that they aren't capable of monstrous atrocities, that them going to the grocery store every day or taking their kids to school doesn't mean that they are not embracing an ideology which is so damaging and dangerous to the people around you.
And one of the things that I will say is that this movie is based on a book that I think I will actually read after this called Caging Skies. And it ties back really nice into Taika's upbringing because his mom was the reason that he actually made this. She talked to him about this book and was like, you really need to read this. And so he read it and immediately knew that he wanted to make the movie. He had wrote the screenplay 12 years before he actually made the movie.
Oh, wow.
So it had been sitting around for a long time, and this really meant a lot to him. I will say the book, from what I understand, doesn't have anything to do with like the imaginary Hitler, and it's not as funny, but it's a book that I think I'm going to try to pick up.
So, AJ, before we get into where we can watch this film, if you don't mind, I'd like to forego our Sam Elliott reflection this week.
Okay.
As much as we do like to have fun with that bit, I think you've taken us on a very heavy journey with this film, and it has such larger implications even right now. And I think it's important for us to leave where we have with your explanation of certain organizations that have talked about this film and have offered educational materials to accompany it. I think that's a good stopping point.
I think that's good to hear.
So where can we watch this film?
I think almost every single place that you are going to watch it, you are going to need a subscription, a premium subscription as well, not just like the basic one. So it can be found on Hulu. YouTube, Sling TV, and Amazon Prime. But Amazon Prime, you have to pay, I think it's $3.99 to rent. I believe I got a sale on Vudu, and it was, I want to say $6 to buy the movie.
Oh, just to buy it outright?
Yeah, I think it was
nice.
about $6 just to buy it. So I just bought the movie because I do like this movie.
Our music is created by Augusto Denise, logo by Arpon Design, mixing and editing by IPTT Studios.
And we want to hear from you and your own slice of toast or Schmecken episode, which is where we talk about actors and showcase them. But we also want to have you guys interact with us. You can interact with us directly in the Spotify app if you have Spotify. If not, you can also reach out to us on our Instagram at IPTT_podcast or email us directly at IPTTpodcast@gmail.com.
So this is ordinarily where we would give you a quick snippet of something from the film and remind you that you can always get more toast. But instead, I'd like to leave you with a quote from Auschwitz survivor Charlotte Delbo. "You who are passing by, I beg you, do something. Learn a dance step, something to justify your existence. Something that gives you the right to be dressed in your skin, in your body hair. Learn to walk and to laugh, because it would be too senseless after all, for so many to have died while you live, doing nothing with your life."
Thank you, everyone, for taking this journey with us. We'll talk to you guys next week.